My name is Alex, and welcome to Paranormal Artist, the podcast where I talk about hauntings and the supernatural. Listener discretion is advised. This audio may not be suitable for children. You're sitting in your house, watching a horror movie, one of your favorite genres, and it's pitch dark everywhere, minus the light from the TV. All of a sudden, you hear a knock at your door, and your Ring camera is going off. You open your app to see who's at the door at this hour. There's two children standing there. Still, you think they might be lost. Maybe you should get up and help, so that's exactly what you do. And that's when they ask, "Can we come in?" You look at them confused and ask why. But they only repeat themselves. "Can we come in?" "We can only come in if you give us permission. So let us in." And that's when one of them finally lifts their head, and you see nothing where their eyes should be. Just pitch dark holes. On today's adventure, we're going to be talking about the black-eyed children. It might sound obvious what they are, how they are, but they are very creepy, and they have been seen all over the world. The first reported sighting of these black-eyed children allegedly happened in Abilene, Texas in 1996 by Brian Bethel. He was sitting in his car at the time that this happened. He was so consumed by whatever he was doing at that moment that he didn't notice that two kids walked up to his car. When they got his attention, it was just by a knock. They had their faces hidden or covered so that he couldn't see who they were. They simply asked him for a ride home. But there was something off about them. They felt weird. Their presence was not normal. He had dread and fear wash over him as he was encountering these kids. Finally, one of them lifted their head and they looked up at him. And he went white. His skin drained of all the color, and he got out of there as soon as he could. He was just trying to leave the parking lot, get out of there by all means necessary. And the kids still spoke to him. "We can't come in unless you say it's okay. Let us in." When he got far enough, he looked back and the kids were gone. They just vanished into thin air. He wrote about this on a website, and the story of these kids, the black-eyed children, just took off. They were on forums like Reddit, anything that you can really get your hands on for the paranormal. So, with all of that being said, you might be wondering what makes them so creepy. Okay, I'll tell you. They're dressed normal, like normal kids dress, probably with like some outdated clothes. They are always in pairs, groups of 2 or more. They seem to be from 6 years old to 16, maybe 17 years old. And they bring this feeling of dread wherever they go. Just, you'll feel dread. I don't even know another word for dread, but that's the one. You will definitely know that they're there. They will approach people who are familiar with them, which adds on to my fear because I've known about them for ages. They're typically pale, really pale, no color, and very inappropriately dressed for the weather or even the time period that they're in. And their voices sound breathless, like a whisper. Like there's not a lot of tone to their voices, but you can hear them. And the most obvious trait, if you even get to that point, is the lack of eyes looking at you. It's just two dark circles staring at you, looking in your eyes and scaring the ever-living hell out of you. And honestly, I don't know how I would react if I encountered one of these, but I do know that I have like a slight fear of running into them because why wouldn't you? The black-eyed children will usually cause a fight or flight reaction in the people they encounter or the people who encounter them. Let's switch that. The people who encounter them. So if you don't know what a fight or flight response is, that is the drive that most people react by leaving or running away. The instinctive physiological response to a threatening situation which readies one either to resist forcibly or to run away. A lot of people would probably have that flight reaction because it's just an intense feeling to feel dread and then see these kids for no reason just standing. Like, where did they come from? Who dropped them off? How did they appear? Where the hell did they come from? Because from what I've seen and read and heard, they just kind of appear out of nowhere. They just manifest, or they get dropped off by their UFO aliens or something like that. Regardless of how they get there, they always cause the same stuff. The feeling of dread and a fight or flight reaction. So if I encounter them, I'm going to flight and then I'm going to fight. Because apparently, what I've learned about myself is that I will get scared, turn around, and go back and see what scared me, because I have to fucking know. It's not always the case with a lot of people. A lot of people just want to get out and not look back, never look back. And I wish I could say the same. Like, I will be scared, don't get me wrong. I will be running, but I will also be looking back to see if they are still behind me, and when it's safe to go back and see, like, where did they come from? And it makes me want to go out and buy, like, the equipment for ghost hunting, because I need to know more. Another thing about their eyes, or lack thereof eyes. You get drawn, hypnotized into their eyes. And it's kind of like guiding you to do what they want you to do, which is let them in. It's hard to break away from their emptiness. Like, you just can't stop looking at them. So a lot of people will say, just try your best to run away. Don't look at them, don't even be curious. But if you do happen to look at their eyes, just know that it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to look away. I guess those eyes are breathtaking. I don't know, and I really don't want to find out either. The belief that people have for these kids is that they're either demons, aliens, or vampires. Personally, I think they might be demonic in nature, to be honest. There's a lot of mysterious things about them. Not one thing can point to them being vampires or demons or aliens or whatever cryptid that you can think of. If I had to say with confidence, I believe that they're demons because of their actions, because of what happens if you let them into your house, or because of the feeling you get. And I think that I can say with confidence they are, in fact, demonic in nature. And I really wouldn't want to find out, to be honest with you, because that would probably unleash so much stuff to happen. And I really wouldn't want to be that person to figure it out or to learn what happens when you let them in. However, unfortunately, for some people, they have in fact learned what happens when you let the black-eyed children into your house. And like I said, they're kids. A lot of people have a soft spot for kids. There are kids out there who are bad, who are just born bad. And it sucks to say that, but there are people in this world who were born evil. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, they're just kids, but are they really just kids? Because if I saw two children coming up to me, to my door, to my car, wherever I'm at, and asking me to let them in my house, I would probably say no, and then hide somewhere where they can't see me. Which leads to the next question. Are they able to project their voices into your head, into your mind, like telepathically? Do they have any kind of mysterious powers? I didn't see anything about them having mysterious powers other than being able to draw you to doing what they want by looking in their eyes. But I do know that I don't know how I would honestly react if I ran into one of these. I know I have it's not exactly the same, but like back when I was in college, we were just hanging out with some friends, and there was this poor girl. She needed help. She really did. She just came knocking on the door at like 12 o'clock in the morning because she was saying that something happened to her and this and that. So one of my friends who clearly has never heard the story let her in, and it was weird because we thought he knew her, but no, he didn't. And we were all just like, what the hell, man? Why would you let her in? But that's probably the closest I've ever come to an alleged black-eyed child. She was fine. She just needed to get the help that she needed. And addiction is something that needs to be addressed, especially when you're younger. And I hope that if she finds this podcast, I doubt she knows who she is or who she was at that time. I hope that she's gotten the help she needed and that she is doing better. But that was probably one of the scariest nights of my life, just because of this random person banging on the door wanting to come in, and it was very unsettling at first. Not to say that her problem is unsettling, it's just the fact that she's coming to our dorm at this hour and scaring all of us to death. So, like I said, there have been actual encounters reported about these children. I just have the stories from here in the US. I did not find any around the world that I was planning to. I didn't have the time to actually dig deeper the way I wanted to and look. So maybe there will be like a comeback episode to this. Maybe not. It all depends on what happens. So in 2016, the state of Vermont, which is in the northern section of the US, there was a horrible blizzard going on, like a really bad, and if you don't know what a blizzard is, it's a horrible, I'll say like massive snowstorm, which I'm sure everybody's heard of a blizzard, but I just want to clarify that just in case. So a woman heard a knock at her door. There were 2 kids standing at her door, and they wanted to use the phone so that they can call their mom to get a ride. She felt weird, nervous about their presence, but she let them in anyway, which goes against all of my better judgment. I would not. That's no, just no. Absolutely not. When the kids came in, she noticed that their eyes were black, which again runs back to the whole, why did you not just whatever, people are gonna do people things no matter what. She was caught in a motionless phase of just staring at them, which again, they do draw your eyes to look into their eyes, and that's one of their weird little powers. But that is also when she said her husband had a bad nosebleed. The power went out, and there's just a bunch of weird, unexplainable things happened when she let those kids in. And the kids spoke together in unison, saying that their parents had arrived. So this woman in her house where there's no power watched as the kids left and get into a solid black car with a man in a suit. And not long after this incident, the husband was diagnosed with a severe skin cancer. I don't know what skin cancer, that hasn't been specified. I don't know if he survived the ordeal. I don't know. And she herself also had a bunch of health issues that came up, including nosebleeds. So she blames everything that happened to them after she let them on the kids. And also, the cats that they had disappeared. They haven't found them. I don't know if they were just running away in complete fear, if they had like a doggy door that they can make an escape out of, but the cats are gone nonetheless. Wow. I don't know, and I get it. I said earlier, there's a soft spot for children, but there are certain things that you have that feeling in your stomach, that gut feeling to not let something in. But when you do, you have to live with what you have done. So hopefully their health has gotten better and things have gone back to normal for them after this encounter with the black-eyed children. I know that whenever you let them in, it's just a bunch of stuff happens, and it's not good. If you already have the feeling of dread when you see them, don't let them in. Don't even give them permission to come in, because clearly there is something off about them. There is something about them that we don't like, and they should not be welcome into our homes, into our cars. That's it. Another encounter that I have from these kids is from 2008, so probably about the time that I found out about them. This was a 12-year-old. He was at the salon with his mom, but he was waiting in the truck because that's what preteens and teenagers do whenever they want to go with their parents. I did the same thing. I stayed in the car. I never wanted to really go anywhere. I would always just go to the car and just sit there. So I got out of the house to stay somewhere else that was kind of secluded and quiet. Whatever, not the point. He saw a kid walking across the street, thought it was one of his classmates, and he was kind of knocking on the window to get the kid's attention. That's when he realized that this was not somebody he knew. It was just a mistaken identity. The kid began to walk towards him, and he just got chills and dread. He felt scared. And, he felt that he was staring into the face of evil. And that is probably the best way to put how these kids are. When the kid got to the truck, he started demanding that this boy let him in the truck with him. He was like, let me in. So, out of fear, the kid went into hiding. He went under the glove box. If you don't know what a glove box is, it's usually on the passenger side of the car. A lot of people put like their insurance or the book for their car, and it's just like a little storage space. So he's under there, hiding on basically the floorboards of the car. He is waiting in fear until his mom comes out. So some time passes by, and his mom eventually did come out, and she told him that this child, this black-eyed kid, went into the actual salon and demanded for the truck keys, which obviously she didn't give it to him, or we would have a completely different outcome on the story. The fact that this kid went into a salon and asked for the truck keys for this car is astonishing. I'm blown away. I wouldn't know what to do if I saw that, and I wonder how many people were in the salon that also have a similar story about this child having come to their place where they're getting a service done. I would be terrified. Just having a strange kid come up to me in general is enough for me to be like, what are you doing? Why are you sitting there? Why are you talking to me? Why are you looking at me? Because I really don't like the whole coming up to somebody you don't know thing. It's kind of awkward and weird. And I'm guessing the child that he saw was about his age. So probably like 11 to 14 years old. Another weird, strange story that I have regarding some random person knocking on my door, I think, was my parents telling me about this lady that would come up to the door at night and just knock on it. And obviously she was mentally ill and probably homeless, but that's pretty creepy because at night, again, this random lady just comes and knocks on the door like, it's a normal day in the neighborhood, which, I don't know what I would do if I saw that. I think that every time I would go and still go to my parents' house, I kind of have like a little bit of fear that this lady is going to be knocking on the door while I'm there. And I wouldn't know what to do because, like I said, I scare easily, but I will try to figure out what was going on. I don't know what I would do if I encountered that. And even where I live now, I don't know what I would do if some random person just came to my door, with the exception of DoorDash or like Domino's. I really don't know because, it's a little scary right now with all these people. There's a lot of things going on in the world that make you want to just kind of shut down and stay inside of your house for safety or just be more aware of what's going on around you. I usually wear my AirPods, but lately I've not been doing that because I just keep getting this paranoid feeling that I'm being watched. And it might sound crazy, but maybe I have unleashed something while doing these stories. And speaking of that, the other day, when I started doing the research for the story, I was watching a Ghost Adventures episode, and there is a doll on there. Her name is Peggy. She's very creepy, very unsettling. She has allegedly caused so much crap to happen. It's not even funny. I mean, like, people have had heart attacks, car accidents, all kinds of stuff. it just so happens I watched that episode and I'm doing research for this episode today, and a humongous storm comes through Texas. I mean, I can't believe it. It was probably a good, pretty scary storm for me. I've been through several storms here, but this one was a little bit different. There were alerts going off on people's phones. The wind was insane. It was like, I don't even have really too many words to describe it, but it was pretty fucking scary. I was calling my mom because I was like, I'm kind of terrified because, the storm is huge. I mean, the wind was crazy. There was damage everywhere. People got hail in one side of town, and on the other side, there was just wind damage. And the electricity for the main lights on the outside of where I live have been off for a couple days since that storm, and it's been insanely creepy. And I keep joking about it because I'm like, oh my god, did this and this cause this? Did I awaken something? That's what I keep making the joke of, because I feel like, holy shit, I'm doing this about these kids that are coming to people's doors and asking to let them in. And then I just watched an episode about this doll who can cause anything to happen. And I feel like both the forces combined just created this storm that swept through Texas. And it kind of actually scared the hell out of me a lot. So obviously I've continued with the story. I'm not changing it. Just know that I probably will or will not do an episode over the doll. That's still in debate because there's a lot of stuff that happens when that doll is brought up in topic. I know that some of the podcasts I listen to, their listeners have actually had weird experiences with that doll after the episode aired. So, I don't know. It's, like I said, it's up in the air. I will decide that later on, and maybe I'll save it for Patreon as a bonus episode. So who knows? Just know that this story kind of has shaken me to the core a little bit, because living with anxiety already, this just kind of adds a little bit more. Just a little more, just a little razzle dazzle of being scared when you are alone in your apartment. So anyway, there's a lot of theories about the black-eyed children. I got completely off topic. It's okay. I'm like this on a daily basis. I'm not even going to apologize for that. So some say they're vampires, like I said, because they come out at night and need permission to enter a household or residence or a vehicle. Another one says the reason that they are considered vampires is because we as living beings have a slight disadvantage of not being able to see at night. So they can just kind of creep up on us and we really wouldn't notice. So I don't know if their footsteps are real light or if they have heavy footsteps. That's going to be kind of hard to find out. And I don't want to find out, to be honest with you. So they use our lack of night vision or good night vision to their advantage. There's a book by this person called De Graeocorum. I don't know if I said that right, but it says vampires will typically stalk the living outside and then ask permission to enter the house. I don't really know if that's something that vampires did or if they just kind of appeared. I mean, when I think of vampires, I think of like Dracula, where he comes in and he just like sinks his teeth in and sucks your blood. I don't think they do that. I have not read one where they have physically harmed somebody, but I will find out before the end of this. In fact, I'm gonna look right now. So, with looking, I did find out that they typically do not hurt people unless you let them in. That's another story. There's just a lot of stuff that happens. Apparently, on one website, there was something about murder, but it wasn't a whole lot. So I'm really not going to run with that theory. But if they do happen to be like vampires, then I would just assume they just creep around at night and just see who their next person will be that they're going to run into. The next theory that they have is that they're demonic, mentioned before. It only makes sense because they have to be invited into a life or brought in by something. So basically, these kids could be living as we are, being used as a puppet for an entity, a demonic entity. In a way, it kind of supports the theory because it's been reported that a lot of people who are in possession of demonic spirits have had black eyes. Their irises and pupils are just black. I mean, pupils are already black, but the colored portion, the iris, is black. And they are not acting as themselves. A lot of weird stuff happens around them. And a lot of stuff before the possession happens. There's oppression and, so could these kids be living beings that are just possessed? Who knows? And the final theory would be, well, actually, no, before I even move on to that, to support the theory that these are kids being used as puppets, there's actually a quote I found. An example could be found in the possession and subsequent exorcism of Annalise Michel, a case that ended in her tragic death. What is truly relevant to this article is that Annalise was described as having black eyes during periods of her ordeal. So, it is possible that the phenomenon of supposed demonic possession may in some way be linked to cases of black-eyed children, end quote. And that makes perfect sense to me because it has been known, like I said earlier, that when possessed by a demon, the eyes are typically known to turn black. Are these kids sacrificed to become part of this possession? I don't know. But what I do know is that if they are in fact demons, then it definitely fits the description of what I have personally considered to be demonic possession, down to the black eyes, acting strange, the feelings of dread. Now, I don't necessarily, actually, I was gonna say I don't know necessarily, but I do actually know, so scratch that. What I know for sure is that these demons need to be welcomed in. So, if we think about Annabelle the doll, the spirit of Annabelle, that one scares me. Don't get me on that. So the doll is evil, possessed with a demonic spirit. And spirit's not even the right word. It is an entity, a demonic entity. Apparently, with this doll, the original story is that it was a gift to a nurse student way back in the 60s, and a lot of weird stuff kept happening with and around this doll. So a medium told the student, the person who received the gift, that it was a child who was wanting to be attached and loved on this doll because, this was the spirit of a child. Children are innocent. Not in this story, but in general, children are innocent. They gave permission for this alleged child spirit to live inside the doll. And upon doing that, that is when the story of Annabelle is born. The crazy things happen around the house. I think that these kids are demons. As I said earlier, probably repeated myself a couple times. I'm sorry. And the last and final theory about these kids is that they are aliens. Now, why would they be aliens? Okay. Based off of the experience from the lady in Vermont, they call this person and they get into a black car with a suspiciously tall man in a suit. Kind of sounds like the plot of Men in Black, because this is all mysterious and they drove black cars, but there's also been actual sightings of the men in black caught on video. They are typically just pale, tall guys wearing a suit that come in whenever there has been an alleged sighting of UFO and or alien experiences. So, if these kids are aliens, then it supports the fact that they have been picked up by Man in Black. And it's not the first time that I've seen this particular thing about them being aliens. It makes sense. They're just, everything that is said makes sense. Maybe they are all three, maybe not. But like I said, I think they're demons. Aliens might be stretching a little bit. It's possible that they are aliens, because there's a lot of stuff in this world that we actually still can't explain. I don't know if anybody else has heard, but there's been an unusual amount of sightings of UFOs in the past couple weeks. So I'm going to throw that out there. So if there's UFOs and there happens to be an increase in sightings of these black-eyed children, then maybe we can support the theory even more that they are aliens. But for now, it's a little bit of a stretch, but anything is possible. And for the vampire theory, I'm not sure. I don't think they suck blood. I think they simply want to come in, wreak havoc, and leave. I don't know if they stay lingering, but if they do, God rest your soul, because that's pretty terrifying to think about that. And speaking of UFOs, sightings, I actually have seen some UFOs, of course, in Abilene, where the story originally took place. And this was kind of on the outskirts, one of the outskirt towns of Abilene. I have photos. They're blurry, of course, right? Why wouldn't they be? So I have these photos on my phone of UFOs that I believe I saw. And, it's kind of crazy that all of this is taking place in Abilene because there's nothing there, at least to me. Just some weird stuff happens, apparently, in Abilene, like the first sightings of the black-eyed children and the UFOs. And the UFOs are or have been allegedly reported around the Air Force base that's there. And I've heard of a couple, but not enough, and that'll be for another day. Down the road, I'm not sure when I'll talk about it. But there are a lot of stories of UFOs. People have seen them. So if there's an increase of UFOs and then the black-eyed children after that, then perhaps they are in fact aliens. For the love of Jesus Christ, do not let them in. Even if you're curious, don't do it. And if you do, I'm not responsible. I'm just telling the story. I'm not responsible for whatever happens at the mention of anything that I talk about on this podcast. I am talking about this stuff because I enjoy it. I love it. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be actively searching for the black-eyed children. No. Kids are creepy. I think the creepiest thing about kids is that they can see things that we can't. While it's creepy, it's also fascinating. I know that a lot of kids can see relatives that have passed on. They can see things that have been there generations before. So I'm going to leave it at that. So if you are actively going to go searching for the black-eyed children, please do not. And if you do, send me an email. Please, I need to know what you experienced, because personally, I don't want to experience it. I also wanted to add in that there is actually a ghost hunt happening around DFW at White Rock Lake. It's $45 a person, and it sounds like it would be a blast, and I'm kind of excited about it. It's going to be March 11th from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. I found out about this event from North DFW Paranormal Group, and it sounds like it would be a blast to go to. As I mention at the end of every single episode, if you are having suicidal ideation or are feeling suicidal, call or text 988. They're open 365 days a year, 24/7, and they are ready to help you for any need, even if you just need somebody to talk to. I have talked to them. They helped me during my time of need. And I know a few other people who have also talked to them that also got the help that they needed. So please, if you are feeling that way, call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you have any experiences or suggestions for a story in the future, you can email me at paranormalartistpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Patreon. The link will be up on my social media pages. If you want to find me on social media, my Instagram is alexagain with 2 underscores. I'm also on TikTok and YouTube with the username Paranormal Artist Podcast.